Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Vishnu Priya.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Akshay.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay, Akshay. Not very good, but not very bad either. Okay, let's get going. What I was saying this morning was that um, you find that Thomas Hobbes is somebody who's deliberately painting a picture of human beings as fickle, greedy, and not necessarily peace loving. Just painting in all, he is actually painting a negative. Sure. Once, sorry, please. Otherwise, they'll go behind her again. So I was saying that the negative picture that Hobbes paints of the human being and of I was talking to you about this particular thing. Hey, stop it, stupid dogs. Um, the picture that Hobbes paints of human nature is very similar to the picture of human nature painted by Machiavelli. Okay, Machiavelli does this deliberately, and Hobbes also does this deliberately. Both of both of them do this deliberately, since they want to they want to both have authority, authority at the center of human society. Both feel that without authority, human society doesn't exist properly. Machiavelli abstracts society for this purpose, which is to establish that you need to have authority. And Hobbes abstracts the state for the same reason, for the same purpose. Why is why is Hobbes abstracting the state? Because the state is just coming into being. It is a relatively new institution. And since this new institution is coming into being at a time when the England that Hobbes lives in is witnessing different kinds of strife, what he was seeing is that the nature of authority that existed then was inadequate to deal with uh, law and order in society. Okay, so that is the reason why he abstracts the state, and along with it, when you abstract the state, he is also abstracted authority. Okay, please remember the state is still new. And he was afraid that if allowed to drift the way it was drifting, then the state would never have, would basically never have uh, a proper kind of authority. And this new institution wouldn't be able to have proper government. That is what Hobbes fears. Okay, that is his main fear and intention behind what he does, which is abstracting state and authority. Now, what he's also trying to do is to present a picture that human beings are rational. How are we saying or why is he trying to portray human beings as rational? He's portraying them as rational because they have an urge for self preservation, which is a rational urge born out of the two fundamental drives that uh, govern human behavior. Two fundamental drives. This morning also I told the class, whoever was there, that we find this whole idea of fundamental, no, first let me finish this. So he talks about two fundamental drives. And what are these drives? Uh, these drives are uh, these drives appetite, aversion. These two drives for Hobbes are there in every human being. Okay, and since these are called because these drives are there in every human being, and because of the fact that they govern the behavior of all human beings, this kind of an argument is called fundamentality of human nature. Okay, some people call this, this is not psychology. In some books written by some people, you will find the usage that Hobbes is talking about psychology. There was no psychology at that time. Uh, there was only, psychology came only in the last decade of the 19th century. It is sporadically used by uh, two or three people only. Uh, as a discipline, it should be considered as a 20th century discipline. The psychology is not an old discipline. Please remember that. Okay. Uh, so there was no psychology. Um, this is not psychology. This is just fundamentality of human nature. And human nature being fundamental basically means that it is unvarying. It doesn't change from person to person. This is there in every human being. Now, if he's saying that the human being is rational and has an urge for rational self-preservation, and if he's also arguing that there is this fundamentality of human nature, which is appetite and aversion. Appetite suggests that people move towards what they like. Okay, they move towards what they like, and they move away from what they don't like. The same principle has been used by Bentham in utilitarianism, where he says that people seek pleasure and avoid pain. Okay, so there also you have a fundamentality of human nature. And if you look at Rousseau, in Rousseau also you find this argument where he says that by birth people are uh, good. All human beings are good by birth. They are corrupted by the bourgeois civil society, which is what corrupts them and takes away the positive qualities with which people are born. I had talked about this, if you remember, in a fair amount of detail when I was, yes, sir.
Sir, Rousseau was the first person to coin this word bourgeois. Is it Karl Marx use it? Did Karl Marx use this word, bourgeois civil society?
It was not a word coined by Rousseau. It's a French word, and it comes from bourgeois. Okay, it comes from the word bourgeois. Bourgeois means something which is in the middle. So the capitalist class, Rousseau called it the bourgeois class. Why did he call it the bourgeois class? Because it is something that uh, was born from in between the two dominant classes in the feudal society, in the feudal period. The dominant classes in the feudal period were the aristocracy and also uh, the peasant or the farmer or the servant. Peasant or servant uh, was one class, one dominant class. The other dominant class was aristocracy in the feudal period. And this was neither aristocracy. I told you feudalism impoverished everyone. This new class of mercantilists or mercantile capitalists, it was born out of, born somewhere in between the aristocracy and the peasant or the servant. So that's why he called it bourgeois. Bourgeois. Bourgeois is a French word. He didn't coin it, it always existed. It showed that which was middle. Okay, so Marx used it uh, because he believed that that would be historically the correct uh, name to give to the capitalist class. Funnily enough, there is no such convenient name or word in German. I say funnily enough because otherwise, German is a very versatile language, far versatile than any of its European counterparts. So, bourgeois was not coined by Rousseau, but he used it. He used it because he also created a triad. The triad that he created was family, the second was bourgeois society or civil society, and the third was the state. So, if you put society here, civil society, where corruption takes place, that is again in the middle. It's in the middle of family and the state. So he says at the level of society, man gets corrupted, and
I-
it is the
Is he
duty.
saying that the capitalist class is corrupting society, people?
Yes, because it fosters competition. It fosters competition, and due to the fostering of competition, he believed that the feeling of we, okay, like for example, if your family buys a car, you say, we bought a car. You don't say, my father bought a car, or you won't say, I bought a car. We say, we bought a car when we talk about the family. In the family, we have the we, the grouping, which is what he calls solidarity. It is lost at the level of the society, okay? Because it is here that people are competing with each other. And while competing with each other, the we is replaced by I. It is replaced by the I. So the bourgeois individual is somebody who is alienated. He's alienated, he's not anchored. He's not anchored like he is when he is with the family. So it was the duty of the state to build the same sense of family that people had, the we-ness. He wanted that to be built at a bigger level, and that was the duty of the state. The state, which for him was a city state, had to foster that spirit of unity, the spirit of unity, and calling we rather than I, not this competitive individual who is saying I.
Sir, did Gramsci use it, this word bourgeois in same sense?
Yes, absolutely the same sense.
Three used this word in same sense.
Hmm?
Karl Marx, Rousseau,
Karl
Gramsci.
Marx, Engels, Engels also uses it.
Yes.
Hmm. Gramsci uses it. Yeah, they use it at the same, it's the same meaning.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So Rousseau believed that people were fundamentally good when they were born. That is the fundamentality of human nature in Rousseau. This is not psychology. Fundamentality of human nature uh, is also used by other thinkers. I told you Bentham being one of them, and most definitely Hobbes. Now, I was trying to say that there is a tension here. And what is the tension? The tension is if man has rational self preservation, the urge for it, then you can legitimately question Hobbes and say, why is the state of nature a war of all against all? Now, it is given the purpose that he has, given the purpose that he has, it is absolutely necessary for Hobbes to build this kind of human being who's fickle, greedy, wanting power, all these things. Otherwise, he won't be able to construct his authority, the kind of authority that he wants. Similarly, unless he says they are rational, he cannot even talk about a contract. He cannot talk about the establishment of a stable society. So it's a deliberate ruse. Okay, it's a deliberate ruse that is used by Hobbes to create the kind of society he wants. So, having said that people go towards what they want, what they like, and away from what they don't like, that itself for him is the proof of rationality. You would be irrational if you went towards what you don't like. Let's use Bentham's terms for one instance. If you avoid pleasure and seek pain, then there's something wrong with you. It's deviant behavior. If you avoid pleasure and seek pain, normal behavior is seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That is what makes us rational. So, this is the point that he is making, that these drives govern human behavior, which is rational. And since the human being is rational, he is capable of taking stock of his situation in the state of nature and is now averse is averse to living in the state of nature. Okay. Human being, instead of is, you can say are. Human beings are averse to continue living in this in the state of nature where life is solitary, uh, nasty, brutish, and short. They're averse to it. So, what do? They want to come out of the state of nature, and they come out. They come out of the state of nature by creating a social contract. Please recall the argument I gave you that those things which have been cited as things which contribute to the what do we say, things that contribute, um, no, I'm lost again. This is happening very frequently. I think I have to see my doctor. What was I saying? What was I? Yeah, they want to come out of the state of nature through a social contract, a contract that is binding on all people, a contract that creates new institutions. Please remember that according to Hobbes, the state of nature is pre social. But when Hobbes is talking about the social contract, he is not talking about it as a what should I say? He's not talking about it as a, uh, um, he's not talking about it as something that creates society first. Okay, all of us are used to the idea that society precedes state. In Hobbes, however, you don't find this. What you find is that, yeah, I was also trying to tell you, please recall the argument I gave you that this social contract is a proper contract of the modern variety, of the capitalist variety, and not a covenant, which is what you find between God and Moses, Moses and the Jews, and later Moses Maimonides also talked about a contract. Those are all covenants, they are not contracts. These are contracts like we have even today. We have a contract for everything, right? We enter into a contract, into an agreement whenever we do anything, even if you're renting a house, you enter into some kind of a contract, some kind of an agreement with the owner of the house. Okay. Or the owner enters into a contract with whoever wants to take his house on rent. And it's got all kinds of clauses. Every year you have to raise the rent by 5% and things like that. Okay, they have all these uh, different things. Uh, so, this is a proper contract of the capitalist variety in a modern society, in a modern setting, and it is also extremely unusual. It is extremely unusual because when people enter into a contract, what do they create first? They create a sovereign, sovereign as the highest power. Okay? Sovereign as the highest power, and then along with the sovereign, you create a state. Okay, you create a state. And once you have created the sovereign and the state, both of which are a result of a certain kind of authority, which we'll talk about now, then society becomes possible. Then society becomes possible. So, what is Hobbes saying? What is the main ingredient of the social contract in Hobbes? Those of you who were there in the morning will remember that I was talking about this whole concept of why does Hobbes, or on what basis does Hobbes talk about natural rights? Uh, if you remember, then I had told you that natural rights go hand in hand with natural laws. Natural laws are laws of nature, and according to the laws of nature, whatever is there in nature is to be enjoyed by everyone. Now, if you do not assume that nature has given you the right to use its bounty, its products, if it doesn't allow you to, if you don't assume that you have a right to use those, that basically means that you cannot do anything. You cannot pluck a fruit from a tree and eat it. You cannot take vegetables, and as hunter-gatherers, people also killed animals. We still do, not as hunter-gatherers, but now we do it as industry. We do it as proper industry. So what exactly are we doing? We are killing an animal to satisfy our own hunger, or we are plucking the fruit of a tree. Do you have to ask the permission of the tree? May I pluck the fruit? Or do you have to ask a vegetable plant, may I take the vegetables? Or do you ask the animal that you kill, do you say, may I kill you? No, you don't. You just do it. Why? Because you are assuming that for survival in nature, the laws of nature allow you, they allow you to have natural rights. So natural rights originally are nothing but those things that you do in order to keep yourself alive. But Hobbes is a cunning man. He's not really talking about a state of nature which is chronological, because that state of nature never ever existed. He's talking about a logical state of nature. So what he does is he adds on what are considered by people as rights in their time, in that particular time. He adds those to the list of natural rights. He adds those to the list of natural rights. And he does that in order to take them away, not to give you and empower you. No, he gives you all kinds of rights and calls them natural rights to take them away. So, the social contract with the sovereign requires people to surrender their natural rights. Okay, so why do they need to surrender the natural rights? Why do people have to surrender natural rights? What happens if they keep them? Hobbes says that the retention of natural rights is the source all conflict. If people retain their natural rights, then people will come into conflict. Let's look at it this way. You're looking at an apple tree. There are 4 apples on it, and there are 15 people who want to eat apples, right? I want you to remember this point, because when we go to Locke, this becomes a very important point to discuss. So if there are 4 apples on the tree, and if there are 15 people wanting them, then they fight. Might becomes right. The most powerful one is the one who will get the apples. The weaker ones don't get the apples. That is the source and the nature of conflict that we find being portrayed in Hobbes. People fight. So, if you retain your natural right, then you say, I have a right over that apple. Or you'll say, I have a right over this uh, box. I have a right over this computer. So, if rights are given to you and you are allowed to retain those rights, then the source of conflicts continues to remain, in which case the social contract is a meaningless, pointless exercise. The social contract is a meaningless, pointless exercise. Why get into a social contract to remain where you were? You have to come out of where you were into a better situation, right? So he's therefore saying that you have to get rid of this source of conflict, which is natural rights. You can't retain them. You have to surrender them to the sovereign. In return, so you're creating the sovereign, surrendering your rights through the social contract. What for? for having a life in which there's no strife. You're not fighting anyone. There's complete peace and tranquility, and there is longevity of life. This is as opposed to what you had in the state of nature, where there is, we should say, tranquility, sociability, and longevity of life. Okay, which is completely different from solitary, nasty, brutish, and short. All those have been replaced by lack of strife, by sociability, peace and tranquility, and longevity of life. So that is the purpose of the contract. Hobbes's contract is unique because it first creates a sovereign authority, and the state, which then go on to enable the creation of a peaceful society. It is very, very unique. There is no other instance where somebody puts sovereign authority and the state before society. And Hobbes is doing this So that is what makes Hobbes' contract what it is. It'll really be a society only when there is a proper or appropriate authority acting on people. If there is no proper authority, then people will get into the England of his times, which is characterized by the wars, 100 years, 30 years, something that is characterized by civil strife, strife between the feudal lords and the kings in an economy that is getting impoverished on a daily basis. So, those are all the things that you will see in a society where there is no proper authority. So, the state of nature, with the idea that human beings sprout out of the ground like mushrooms, is basically with the intention. It is done basically with the intention to ensure that one can establish a proper authority. And that is through the mechanism of a contract and the creation of a sovereign authority. So it's not the church, it's not the king, it's none of the traditional structures. It's a new structure. That is why it's with Hobbes that the state really comes into being. So that is what we have to understand. Hobbes is saying that you need a sovereign authority. And Hobbes does not give If you revolt against the sovereign, then you relapse back into you you revert into the state of nature. So Hobbes's your stupid syllabus says absolutism. There is no such thing. There is absolute, there is no ism called an absolutism. The sovereign is absolute. Now, there are two, okay, there are many interpretations we have seen. Sabine, Leo Strauss. Okay, there are different people who have interpreted different Hobbes differently. But the two interpretations which are important for us to take note of are those by Michael Oakeshott and C.B. MacPherson. Oakeshott argues that through the contract, Hobbes is creating an elaborate system of obligation of people to each other. This is what Oakeshott argues. He says this whole construction is to let people know that you have an obligation towards a fellow human being, and only when you realize that society is a network of obligations. Only when we realize that society is a network of obligations, only then do we actually, only then do we start understanding the purpose of society. Hobbes is trying to sensitize people to this particular idea that you have obligations towards other people, and only when you realize that, only when you realize that do you live peacefully and really socially. This is Oakeshott's argument. On the face of it, it is a possible argument. Possible meaning that it talks about something which is possible. It's not something which is impossible. Okay? It is not something which is impossible. It is a possibility, or so it seems. But consider it a little more deeply. If there is a realization that there is obligation, or that people have obligations towards each other that need to be fulfilled, then why is Hobbes creating this Leviathan? Leviathan, I told you, is something big, huge. Why is he creating this all powerful Leviathan of a sovereign? If we are capable of obligation, then we don't require to surrender our rights. We don't require to have this huge sovereign. So that is what MacPherson says. MacPherson says that Hobbes is not trying to create any kind of obligations. He's not trying to tell people that you have to have obligations. There is no morally instructive component to the entire philosophy of Hobbes. In fact, Hobbes does not even tell you what the Leviathan is. Is the Leviathan an individual? Is the Leviathan a group of people? He only says the Leviathan is the sovereign. But where does this sovereignty rest? In one person, or in a group, Hobbes is not talking about any of those. He's not talking about any of those. He's just saying it's a sovereign. So he says, C.P. MacPherson, he argues that Hobbes's sovereign This is what MacPherson says. MacPherson says Hobbes is not interested in obligation. The idea that he's talking about, rational self preservation, is a giveaway. It's not the preservation, rational species preservation. No, he's talking about rational self preservation. The self is an individual self, not a group, not society. So he says he's a possessive individualist, completely modern, but not fully liberal. Not fully liberal. He's a proto-liberal thinker. Proto, I told you, is prototype. He's a prototype of a liberal thinker. And it is with John Locke that we find a fully liberal thinker taking shape. So if you don't see too deeply, Michael Oakeshott's argument that he's talking about obligations seems feasible, but when you contextualize it in the idea of rational self preservation, and you look at this authority, all powerful authority, the Leviathan, the sovereign, then the picture that you get is that he's creating a possessive individualist. He is a possessive individualist. He believes in individualism. So that is it as far as uh, Hobbes is concerned. Tomorrow, when I meet you, we'll pick up John Locke and we'll see how Locke is a classical political economist and also how he is a classical liberal philosopher. So that we'll do tomorrow. We are not done with Hobbes because whenever we talk about the categories in Locke, it automatically becomes necessary for us to compare Hobbes and Locke. In fact, that is yet another reason that is put forth by C.B. MacPherson to say Hobbes is an incomplete Locke, and Locke is Hobbes completed, and therefore he is an individualist. Okay then, Akshay Kumar,
Yes, sir.
questions?
Nothing, sir.
Nothing.
I don't have any questions.
Why waste time asking questions of the stupid fat fellow? Huh?
No, sir. I don't have any doubts.
You don't have any doubts about my foolishness. I know, I know. I know you think I'm a fool, but
No, sir.
I am what I am. I'm just joking. Okay, so see you tomorrow. And tomorrow, hopefully, because I'm not keeping very well, uh, hopefully I'll be able to engage a class, and I want to do Western political thought in both classes till we finish the social contractualists. After,
Yes, sir.
because it's a big, it's a very big unit, and I'm rushing to finish it off. Once we finish this off, then we'll return to the arrangement of one class, which is political thought, and the other class, which is uh, political ideologies. Okay, so till we finish Locke and Rousseau, we continue with this format. Also, my health permitting. I have to make it permit because otherwise we'll be terribly short of time. And in all this, I've got into another jam. I've got into a jam because I think I told you about academia.edu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, for some strange reason, they picked me up for a pilot project, which is right now academia.edu has only papers
Yes,
that
sir.
people write and put on academia.edu. But now they want to start uh, online classes on that platform. So there is a pilot project happening. They chose a group of people and asked them to submit what you would do and why um should we take you to do this. And they sent me an invitation, which I gladly accepted, and that has now got accepted. So I have to teach a course on ancient Indian thought.
Congrats, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, will they pay you?
Ultimately, yes, there are all kinds of stipulations, but they will pay.
Before
Ah,
you are you used to write articles and keep it in academia edu.
yeah,
At that time, they used to pay you, or
no, that is no. There's no payment for that. For this, there is, but there are some conditions, like I said. Um they said as soon as I send the courses, they'll pay me $250. Uh, and after that, depending on how many people are viewing the video and for how many minutes, uh, depending on all that, they'll pay further amounts of money. So I'm actually a little scared because This year so far has been unlike any other year professionally. It's been unlike any other year in my life. I've got 4 awards, two international, one national lifetime achievement award, and I don't know why this is happening to me because I don't have any contacts. Somebody is nominating me. I was nominated for this Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam um, National Award for teaching um, research and publications. I don't know who nominated me, but I was given that award. I don't know who did this, but I have been um made a mentor to young faculty. Somebody suggested my name, and the UGC and the Ministry of Education have certified me as a mentor. So that is another thing. And there is this international society called Scholars and Academicians Scientific Society, and they have given me a uh, what should I say? They've given me the position of that in that society as an eminent fellow member. So I can write SEFM uh, at the end of as one of my qualifications. Like people write FRCS. Uh, it's like that. I can write SEFM. I got that, and I have now. Yesterday, I got this member of educational um, and uh, scientific research commission, uh, which is a part of international organization for educational development, IOED, and this is backed by the United Nations. I have been given that membership. So I'm scared. Throughout my career, nothing good has happened to me. Seriously. Now, suddenly, and this morning, this academia thing, academia.edu thing. Some
Sir, how many hours you have to teach?
minimum 3 classes of 1.5 hours, maximum 10 classes. So I'm really scared. Why are these things happening to me? I am not even known in Usmania, I thought. But these things are happening. And so I'm really scared. Is this a storm before the calm? Sometimes I wonder, am I dying or what? These things are. No, seriously. Seriously. These things are happening, and maybe one of these days I'll just croak it. I don't know. Then they're all happening one after another. So that's what is slightly perturbing.
You have to be happy, sir, since your hard work pays.
See, for somebody who is not used to a single reward, for some really sincere work done for 30 years, for 30 years, nothing happened in my life.
Why do you think like that, sir? People who listen to your classes do acknowledge.
I don't know. This is making me, I'm not exaggerating or joking, it is making me nervous. Suddenly, why are these things happening? I'm confused. I'm completely confused. Okay, a couple of good things did happen, like me being sent abroad and all that. But that was done by my students. I know that my students who got working in embassies and consulates and all that kind of thing. Um, and anyway, forget it. Whatever will be, will be. So tomorrow we'll do John Locke, and let's get going because I have to record those lectures as well. So thank you very much. It was very kind of you. So hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.